the Friends of the Library for allowing us to do this, and our director for allowing us to do this. And we have the St. Augustine Beach Police and the Alligator Farm. And you're probably like, well, that's an odd combination, but it will be fun. We have some really good questions. We have some great information for you, and we're going to learn a little bit about our local wildlife and ask some questions we've always wanted answers to. All right, so take it away.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Nina, and I have Nicole and Rob with me here today to talk about where you live. So not only do you get the wonderful state of Florida, but also all the important stuff that you can find in your backyard or discovering when you go on a trail, all that good stuff, exploring our lovely ecosystem. Florida is one of a kind. So not only do we have the beach and lakes and estuaries and all kinds of like saltwater to freshwater, but those ecosystems come with really cool animals. So of course today, talking about our Florida natives, you can read wonderful books on everything that lives here in our very specific systems, but you also need to be safe about doing it as well. So we're going to kind of touch on a couple of animals that you would actually discover just by walking out around. So how about we start small and get big?
Absolutely.
Sounds
yes.
good? Great.
Oh, we got live stuff.
Oh, very live. No better way to do it. So we do have a couple of animal ambassadors with us here today. So these are the animals that can be on or off property that are used to meeting guests and are pretty good at being ambassadors for their species. So you guys are actually getting to meet a really, really cool reptile, a very important one here in Florida. And this is Koopa Troopa, and he is a gopher tortoise. Now my little friend here is a hatchling, so one of the reasons he's here with us today is because he does have a leg injury, so unfortunately he cannot go back to the wild. But one day he will eventually get pretty big. But they are very important for our backyards because when he digs those awesome burrows that you can find near the beach or in the sandy pine forest, well, that is actually a home to 300 other species. So you guys want to touch him?
Yes.
Right on this shell. So do you guys think he can feel it?
You
Think he can feel it?
Yes.
Absolutely, and that is because our turtles and tortoises, their spine goes right up into their back, and that is allowing them to feel through their shell. So if you touch your knee at home, that is the same amount of nerve endings in your knee as in all turtles and tortoises' shells. So they can feel it. But do you guys think we should touch these guys in the wild?
I'd say no.
Absolutely not. So gopher tortoises are protected here in Florida, which I'm sure you definitely know a lot about. So it is very great to observe them from afar or read an amazing book about them.
So Nina, do they go in the water?
They do not. So that is a massive misconception for those guys. If you see one exploring the beach or getting close to the ocean, he's probably just going out for a very nice stroll. But you want to look at the shell and the feet. So they have big, stompy feet. Versus my next friend is a good example of someone who would like to go in the water.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Dale is a good example of a turtle who would like to go in the water. And that is because he's a turtle. Our tortoises are land roamers. They'll sometimes soak themselves, but they cannot swim. Our gopher tortoises would sink to the bottom of the ocean. We do not want that. But my friend here is actually a diamondback terrapin, also native right here in your backyard. So are you guys up at night?
Yes.
You like up all night, all the good stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Best time to see these guys, and that is because Dale is nocturnal. So he is only awake at night and sleeps during the day. But this webbing between his toes tells you he enjoys the water versus being on land so much. But you can find turtles on land, and that is when they are out basking and sunning themselves. Would you guys like to touch the webbing?
Oh,
Can
please.
he sunburn since he's so light?
Very good question. He cannot sunburn, so his shell is specifically made to soak up the sun. But for these guys, when they are out at night, this nice light coloration blends in with the moon, and he can totally hide himself away from predators.
So cool.
Absolutely.
We got the best job ever.
Absolutely.
So can these turtles swim in the salt water and freshwater?
They can. So terrapins are actually a great example of brackish. So some turtles, like sea turtles, they just love salt. My friend Dale there, he likes salt water and fresh water. And then other ones, like a yellow-bellied slider, those guys, they're gonna do just fresh.
So, stupid question.
No, absolutely.
How do you know Dale's a boy?
That is a great question. So right up underneath their shell, You do have to wait for them to get a little bit older, but you can actually tell because all turtles and tortoises, the males will have an indented shell. That is to get on top of the female shell, and females will have a nice flat one. You do have to sometimes wait a while because just like a really, really old Galapagos tortoise, those guys can live up to 150 to 200 years. So kind of hit or miss on being able to tell them
Those
apart.
are the big ones you guys have at the park, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So if you visit our zoo, not only do we have 5 adult Galapagos tortoises, but we do have a lot of hatchlings as well. And it is really cool to go and see those guys because Durik, our oldest male, is 110. So you definitely want to see that before it, for sure.
So Nicole and I won't tell our age, but that's plus our age and more.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we are young.
Oh yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, including Nina's age.
So
probably.
you guys are doing great. You guys are doing fantastic.
I'm so excited.
Wow.
Hey.
All right. So I can't handle this myself.
Oh, please,
Do you mind?
please, no.
Yeah, thank you.
Please.
That just really gets the weight off of it. Would you like him?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, is it a he?
Yes,
I am
ma'am.
a he.
So this is Jerry. He is an Eastern Indigo. You can also find these guys right here in your backyard in Florida. And he is a really cool snake to get to observe. And that is because he's one of a kind. So they are a little tricky to find. And that is because he likes to be underground. So he lives with our gopher tortoises here in Florida. He's fantastic kind of friend and guard to have because he is protecting those gopher tortoises' eggs. Gopher tortoises will lay their eggs right at the entrance of their tunnel or hole, and pretty much predators that want to come up and dig those eggs up, well, they have quite the surprise waiting for them in there. And this nice dark coloration for him totally hides him. So right when they think they're gonna steal those eggs, Jerry gets a very nice meal.
So how many eggs does the turtle lay?
They can lay anywhere from 6 to sometimes in the 20s.
What?
It really just depends on the individual and how many eggs they cultivate and then lay on out. But Jerry is also one of a kind because he is non-venomous. Otherwise, I would not let you guys hold him because venomous, you don't want to touch. But he's non-venomous. And that being said, he actually has a very cool diet. Not only does he take on rodents, eggs, all that good stuff, he is actually eating other snakes as well. So you can help him.
Eat the gopher tortoise eggs, but he'll eat the other stuff?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
those eggs are up underneath the ground, so he doesn't usually care for them, but he will eventually maybe find like a bird's nest if he climbs a tree. He can be a pretty good climber. But for these guys, other snakes are totally on the diet, including venomous. So you can thank Jerry for helping regulate our snake population as well.
So, how does he eat a venomous snake?
Great question. So he has 2 methods that he can use. So he is either going to use just his mouth to do the work. He doesn't have venom to help him out. So what they have is an extremely powerful bite. So he's going to go for that venomous snake's head and crush it. And then he's got his meal. Or if they are daring to go into the gopher tortoise's den, he is going to push them up against the sides and hopefully suffocate them with the dirt. It's a little scary when you actually think about the details of it, but it kind of just is how he's got to get his meal.
Notice how Nina tells this story. She's, I like it. Your personality is awesome.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But how do you guys think our lovely snakes here get nice and big and strong? What do they got to do to their skin?
Shed it.
Absolutely. So I actually have one of Jerry's sheds right here on the table. So that is all of him. And normally when you find a snake shed, not only can you identify, if you're really good at looking at snake skins, what kind of snake it is, but it's always going to be a foot larger than the snake actually is. So you might think you have a really large snake in your backyard, but you gotta remember, you gotta take a foot off that skin because he was stretching to get out of it. So it is a little bigger than the snake actually is.
So how do you know how old Jerry is?
So Jerry actually has been in managed care. So he has always been in managed care. So if you know the day that they hatched out of the egg, then you can keep track of it.
Okay.
But other animals that might come in from the wild, sometimes we really don't know, or we can make a pretty much educated guess.
So you can't measure Jerry and say Jerry is 6 feet long, so he's 6 years old. You can't do that.
No, you can't. So that's another good myth, especially with alligators. A lot of people say that you can measure an alligator by the nose to the head. That only works for so long because once they are nice and mature and they continue to age, you really can't go off of them.
Thanks for breaking my spirits on how to measure an alligator.
Absolutely. Anything to get it right.
Enjoying
Jimmy's destined to go for his own little walk today.
Oh, indeed. And he's got a lot of length to him. So we just recently re-measured him, and he is almost at 7 feet.
Wow.
So these guys are the largest non-venomous snake in North America.
Does he eat every single day?
He doesn't. It's a great question. So that rat has got to work its way all through his body to come out the other side. So Jerry only eats once a week. Sometimes he'll have a chick or he'll have 2 rats.
Okay. Wow.
Totally just depends.
Okay. I actually thought you were going to show us both Nicole and I reached in going, is there, what was you going to say, there's
I
a
know.
mouse or a rat
I
there?
know.
I wish. I
You
wish.
wish.
I wish. Absolutely. Anything that's kind of weird is ideal. And last but not least.
Oh, she got a feisty one.
Absolutely. There we go. I know, dude. It's kind of weird. So this is Captain, and he is an American alligator. So these guys, of course, can be found right here in your backyard as well. What's really neat about these alligators is that he is a different color right now. And that is because he is what we would call a juvenile or a hatchling. So he's a little bit younger. He's got all these stripes and spots and nice light coloration to camouflage himself. But the adults you'll normally see hanging out on land, they're just going to be that dark charcoal color. So he does have a little bit more color to him, but that will soon fade away as he gets older. But he's about 4 to 6 years old right now.
Is it really?
Yeah, and he lives with about 12 other alligators, and he is also learning to be an ambassador for his species too.
So their eyes are very unique looking, and I see how he blinks
Yes.
like we do.
Yes. So their eyes are absolutely my favorite part. So that cat eye tells you that he is actually a really good hunter at night. So these guys are what we call crepuscular. So they are up at dawn and dusk doing their hunting. Not necessarily too much work in the daytime other than sitting in the sun. But those eyes also come with an extra eyelid, which is wild. So if you've ever wanted to see underwater, like without wearing goggles, these guys can do it. That second eyelid is called a nictitating membrane, and it actually comes in sideways instead of up and down, and he can see underwater like he needs to.
So do they eat like grass and flowers, or just...
I have never seen a gator eat a salad, but
Just curious. You
they
never
are.
know. You never know.
You never know. But these guys are primarily just our meat eaters.
Okay.
So my friend's favorite diet is going to be anything from small mammals, fish, and sometimes birds if he's fast enough.
So can we find alligators right here in Veterans Park, the lake?
You absolutely can. I heard a lovely rumor that you guys have a little one yourself.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, but shh, it's ours.
Absolutely. Nah, you can keep him. We'll take Captain back though, I promise.
So how many alligators are at the Alligator Farm?
Oh, so we can actually have anywhere from about 500 close to 600. It really just depends because you can see a lot on display, but we also have a lot of hatchlings off display as well.
Wow.
So a good bit of them. So do you guys feed your alligator?
No.
That's
No, ma'am.
great. Very
No,
good.
ma'am.
Because you don't want to be feeding your alligators. That's when they become nuisance alligators, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
One question we had was, we asked our staff, what kind of questions that you've always wanted to ask? And one is,
Yes.
do they see an alligator dentist for their teeth ever?
That is a great question. So we do not have an alligator specific dentist, but what we do is we work with our wonderful vets at the University of Florida. But what we can do if we can't have our vets on property all the time is we actually do animal training. These guys are just as smart as a dog. So if you have a food motivated individual, you can teach them anything. So for our lagoon enclosure, which has about 32 American alligators in it, we can actually train them to open up their mouths for us voluntarily so we can check on their teeth, look around in their mouth, and make sure they're nice and healthy.
So just so we're clear, it's against the law. We don't want to ever touch a baby alligator, a big alligator. We want to call us to help you move it. So
And that actually
Yes,
leads
sir.
to one of our questions is, if someone has a pond and an alligator shows up, they were asking, can they shoot the alligator?
You You cannot shoot the alligator.
No.
So there are hunting regulations on American alligators. So there is a season and there is a tag that you must buy, as well as having your hunter's permit. Now that being said, it is not a bad thing. These guys are our apex predator here in Florida. So they do not have any predators once they're nice and large. So during that alligator hunting season, we can regulate them so that they are not wiping out our prey populations. So it's not a bad thing that alligators are hunted, but it must be done through the law.
So, Nina, good question. So, if you see an alligator in a pond or a retention ditch or something like that, if you call local law enforcement, and then we'll call the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, and then they have regulated trappers, just like Nina said, that will come out and remove it. So, we want to stay far away from them because, and if you see babies, what's close to babies?
Mama.
Mama, yes.
Absolutely. So especially this time of year, do be on the lookout if you guys are hitting the trails or walking around lakes and rivers. Look for those big mounds of dirt and leaf litter because it is nesting season, so make sure that you give mom the space she needs so she doesn't think you are trying to hurt her babies.
Wait, what's that noise?
That noise is actually his chirping.
I hope everybody heard that noise, like a grunt noise. It was awesome.
It was.
Uh-oh.
So he's pretty, oh, there he goes. Maybe that was the warning
Little
sign.
sample.
Yeah,
Sample.
if you don't get peed on, you didn't have a good day as a zookeeper.
I'm sure as you
Just
work at
saying.
Alligator Farm, you may get things.
Oh, absolutely. I shower every day, guys. Every
Even the
day.
ones that work the stage every day do this?
Oh, indeed.
So
Almost
let me
always.
ask you a question. So when a mother alligator lays her eggs, what's like the normal number?
Yeah, so in the wild, they're going to lay a lot more because they are going to hope that they can have as many babies as possible in case some eggs are not fertile or those babies do get picked off by another predator. So they can have anywhere from, again, 6 to 60 eggs in a wild clutch. At our zoo, they're not as cramped or pressured because we supply them protection and food and all that good stuff. So they will usually lay less, but we will actually see more fertile eggs, which is
Very
awesome.
cool. So why sometimes do we see an alligator like crossing A1A or A1A Beach Boulevard? Why? I mean, their home's right here. So why leave?
Absolutely. So they could actually be heading somewhere else for their nesting season if that was their favorite spot, or they have different spots for certain things. Sometimes they actually like sunning on a different river side or a different lake entirely. While they may always come back to this one, they might actually like a different spot for a couple of hours or for better hunting, and then they'll come right back. They just get bored.
You get boys right.
Yeah,
Time
we like to
move.
get out of our house and
Yeah.
explore a little
Kinda like
bit, but
humans.
we will
Yeah.
return.
Do they have personalities, like the different animals? Are some like really nice and some really grumpy? Or...
Yes, ma'am. So they do have big personalities, and a lot of people don't think that reptiles do. So, like, Captain's a really good example of it right now. But they do. One of my absolute favorite alligator personalities at the zoo is Brooke. Brooke will run over other animals to get to food. He is the most food-motivated alligator in our lagoon. He's definitely one of my favorites. While Bomber, our largest one in our lagoon, he has his good days and then he has days he doesn't want to do anything. So they definitely come with some fun personalities for sure.
So I got another question for you.
Absolutely.
Where is their brain at? I mean, I look at this big, huge head here. Do they have a big brain?
So they don't actually have as big of a brain as you would think, but their brain's actually going to be right behind in here. So they are very intelligent creatures since they do share the same cerebral cortex as a dog, or close to it.
Wow.
So they can think, explore their environment, and train just as easy as one.
Wow. And then my other question is, so how do I know if this is an alligator or a crocodile?
That is a great question, because there is a big difference for these guys. Alligators have a nice U-shaped snout, and you usually just see their top teeth peeking out. Crocodiles are going to have a nice skinny snout, and their canine will actually stick up instead of down.
The crocodile.
Yep.
So are one species more aggressive than the other? Like
Yes,
alligators?
ma'am. Definitely. So alligators are a little bit more sociable with other alligators. They all kind of hang out. Usually if you see them, you're going to see another alligator right behind that one. My favorite crocodile species is the Cuban croc, and those guys are aggressive and a lot of fun to work with.
So do we have crocodiles in Florida?
We do have crocodiles in Florida. Unfortunately, they have over the years been pushed down very, very south, but we do have freshwater crocodiles that you can see. I know they do hang around the Keys a lot, but they have been creeping back up as their populations are getting better.
Okay, wow.
So it's not
And we
impossible.
have seen these in the saltwater before,
Yes,
here in St. Johns County.
you have. So either he is very temporarily moving somewhere, or there's actually probably something wrong with that. Because they can't spend too much time in salt, just like us. It'll start to make you crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I have a question for, I'm not sure who. What happens if you get a call and you show up and it's some kind of like venomous or dangerous reptile? What are you?
Yep. So actually, we have a great partnership with the Alligator Farm, and then some of our men and women here in with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office are actually trained to handle venomous snakes. We've been through a course that actually the Alligator Farm put on, and some of our men and women have been through additional courses out there. So we usually get there, and if it's something that we can't handle, we have a great relationship with FWC, and we reach out, but we have a lot of cell phone numbers of the Alligator Farm, of course, and so we deal with it amongst ourselves, and there's a few deputies at the Sheriff's Office, so we try to deal with it ourselves. One thing we do not do as law enforcement is you will not see us take our firearms out and shoot an animal. Our goal is to move that animal to a safer location. We feel that we moved into their houses, we meaning humans, and we want them to have their houses back, so we try to move them back to whatever area on the island we can do that's not going to harm any people.
Right.
We get a lot of those calls, by the way. A lot of those calls. Yeah. And we get the ones with the huge snapping turtles. And some of our men and women think they can just pick them up. We have a little class on
They're
that one.
pretty aggressive.
Absolutely.
Very aggressive. Yes, yes.
Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
Don't stick your finger out for a snapping turtle.
Do not.
No, man. They can
Don't
bite
stick your
through a
finger.
watermelon
Yes.
like a tomato.
Yeah, I've seen people like think that they're cute and they put those little fingers
Point.
out there.
Indeed.
Yeah, no. Don't do that.
Nah, we love the partnership of getting to teach that crocodilian capture and restraint, as well as the venomous training, because these guys are well equipped not only for their job but also in their private life. If they have a family member that can just call Rob and be like, hey, we have a snake, they guys can take care of it too.
So I know, like, with everything going on right now, are there animals that have to remain socially distant at the Alligator Farm, or that you have to take extra precautions with?
Yes, ma'am. So if you visit our zoo today, we do have all the lovely safety guidelines. So our lines for like our snack bar and entering the zoo through the gift shop, they're all 6 feet apart so that guests are not on top of each other. But for our mammals, we've had to move some of our primates off display, but you can still see the lemurs since they're actually pretty far from the path that you walk. So we're actually just having to think about mammals right now. So far, reptiles are good to go, but that extra precaution is just for the safety of them and our guests as well.
That's a good question, actually. Yeah. I got a question, too. I'm like a child here. How long can
Great.
he or she stay under the water?
Very good question. So these guys will normally just spend about 30, sometimes 2 hours below the water, but one research actually showed that they can stay under for 4 to 6 hours. But normally they're not going to hang out under the water that long. They really don't need to. But what he can do is close up his nose flaps and he can sink right down. And then when he's ready for some air, he'll come right back up.
So don't just wait a few minutes before go swimming. Like, you really have to know.
Yes, ma'am.
So his little nostrils, and these are his nostrils.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That is his nose. So he has those little gushy flaps that just close up so that way he doesn't ingest water as he goes down.
We wish you could hear, but he's actually grunting again, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't think he liked my hand near his face. He's like, ugh,
Yeah,
don't
if you don't
touch
mind,
me.
move away.
Social distancing.
So I was at the Alligator Farm once. It was really early, and they were like doing their little growly thing. Is there a good time to go? Like, for that? That was just like
Yes,
one of the
ma'am.
newest experiences ever.
Absolutely. If you can make it as soon as we open, about 9, sometimes at 10 o'clock, that is when we call the singing. But it is really scientifically called bellowing. So that is pretty much the flirtatious call of the males and females getting ready for the season.
Okay, very cool.
Absolutely.
So at nighttime out here, you can shine a flashlight.
Yes.
And what do you
Eye
see?
shine.
Yes.
So eye shine's really neat too. Sometimes if you guys make it to like our night programs at our zoo, you can take a flashlight right over our swamp and it looks like stars.
It's
It's
pretty cool.
amazing.
It's a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Scooby-Doo
It
episode.
is. It's like,
I love it. But if you guys want to touch Captain, you're more than welcome to on
Of
his
course.
back. And what you guys get to feel is his osteoderm. So that is his protective outside. It is literally bone on the outside of his body.
Oh, this
So
is
he's quite the predator.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you, why tape around his nose?
Definitely. So anytime we take our crocodilians off property, we do protective tape around their mouth. That is actually also an FWC regulation too.
Okay.
That's just for his safety, my safety, and of course you guys' safety as well.
So we're not hurting him at all. It doesn't look like he's hurt at all.
No, not at all. And he can still breathe, of course. He just can't open his mouth. But when he gets back to the zoo and he gets back in his enclosure, and anytime we work with them on property, we don't have to tape their mouth either.
Okay, nice.
So it doesn't bother him at all. Duct tape is never used because that can actually damage their shell. Honestly, all this tape is practically like the tape you'd have on your desk. It takes nothing to hold a crocodilian's mouth shut, but man, their bite is powerful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. And does he eat every day?
He does. Well, kind of in a way. At this size, he's going to eat a lot more. But once he's an adult, they'll sometimes eat once, 3 times a week, maybe. So the kind of connection between like us and them, it would be like us eating a sub sandwich once a month. And that is it. So they don't eat as much as you would think anyways.
I hope you can see his eyes because he's very curious. He's looking around everywhere, which is very neat.
He's like, this is not the zoo.
They're
No,
all
this is not
enjoying
my
this
home.
field trip. They're like, even down here, they're like super busy.
Actually, you guys are very lucky. This is the Gopher Tortoise's first outing.
Oh, very nice. He's very active down there.
Yeah.
They are. They're like, where are we?
And I wish we had a camera down here because the one flipped over and he righted himself.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're very
so they
busy
are
back
very
here
good
on the
at that.
table.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all busy.
So it's very enriching for them too. They get out of the zoo, they get to stretch their legs if they have legs, not the snake, and they get to check out new sights and smells and all that good stuff.
Nice. This is awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys for your time. It's always good to partner with locally here in St. Augustine.